So question 12. So you should have tried the questions by yourself first. If you haven't, please have a go now. I'll go through the answers one by one in a few seconds. So question A, we have to find solution for x. So the first thing we have to get rid of is this plus 3. So to get rid of the plus 3, we'll have to take away 3 here, and then we'll have to take away 3 here as well. So on the left hand side, the plus 3 and the minus 3 cancels out, leaving us with just the 2x. And on the right hand side, we're going to do 7 take away 3, which is 4. And just copy the sign down. Now, to get the x on its own, we have to get rid of this times 2 here. To do that, we have to divide by 2 here. We'll have to divide by 2 here. So on the left hand side, the times 2 and the divide 2 cancels out, leaving us with just x. On the right hand side, 4 divided by 2 is just 2. And then we just copy the sign down. So x has to be equal to or less than 2. So on your number line, 2, and then draw your circle. So because x has to be less, I'm going to draw an arrow like this. And I can also see the equal sign. So because of this line here, I can see the equal, so that means we have to shade in the circle. So that will be the solution for A. So additionally, they could ask you, what is the largest possible integer value of x? What's the largest possible value that x could be? So x could be 2 because it has the equal sign here. So that's the largest possible value that x could be. Question B. So to solve, we have to get the x on its own, so make x the subject. So to do that, I have to first get rid of this minus 2 first. So how do I get rid of the minus 2? I'll have to add 2. So if I add 2 on the left hand side, I'll have to add 2 on the right hand side. So on the left hand side, the minus 2 and the plus 2 cancels out, leaving with just 4x. And on the right hand side, 12 add 2, so we're going to do 12 add 2 is going to be 14. And then just copy the sign. And now to get the x on its own, I have to get rid of this times 4. To do that, I have to divide by 4 here, and I'll have to divide by 4 here. So on the left hand side, the times 4 and the divide 4 cancels out, leaving with just the x. And on the right hand side, I have to do 14 divided by 4. So I can write it like this, 14 over 4. Now because the numerator and the denominator, the top and the bottom, are even numbers, I could simplify that. So I'll just do it over here to make it a bit more clearer. So 14 over 4, if I divide the top and the bottom by 2, so I'm going to half the 14, I'll get 7. And if I get half of 4 is 2. So now I have 7 over 2. Now you can just say 7 over 2 is 3.5. Or we're going to turn the improper fraction into a mixed number. So first of all, you just copy this and the 2 first, like this. And then you ask yourselves, how many times does 2 go into 7? 2 goes into 7 exactly 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6, and the remainder is 1. And you get the answer of 3.5. So 3.5 or 3.5. So x has to be greater or equal to 3.5. How do you do that in the number line? So just write 3 here, then write 4 here. So 3.5 is going to be in between. So draw your circle there. So x has to be greater than 3.5. So can you see I've drawn my circle in between 3 and 4. and because it has to be greater than 3.5, the arrow will go this way. Okay, and then because I can see the equal sign here, I'm going to shade the circle in. So that's the answer. X has to be greater than or equal to 3.5. So if they asked you what's the smallest integer value that x could be, or what's the smallest whole number that x could be, the smallest value x could be is 4. If they asked you what's the smallest whole number that x could be. So with question C, to solve the equation we have to, or solve the inequality, we have to find out what x is. So to get the x on its own. So to do that, we have to go to the minus 1 first. To go to the minus 1 first, we're going to add 1 to both sides. So if we add 1 to both sides, on the left hand side, the minus 1 and the plus 1 cancels out. And then on the left hand side, I'll be left with just 3x. And on the right hand side, I'm going to do 14 add 1. So what's 14 add 1? It's 15. Then copy the sign. Now to get x on its own, I have to get this times 3. So that means I have to divide by 3 on both sides. So divide by 3 here, divide by 3 here. So the times 3 and the divide 3 cancels out, leaving with just x. And on the right hand side, I have to do 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So x has to be greater than 5. So on number line, write the number 3, do the circle above 3, and x is 5, it should be 5. So because it's greater than 5, draw the arrow like that, and it's greater, it's not equal to 5, so we don't shade the circle in. Thus x is greater than 5. And if they ask you what's the smallest value that x could be, what's the lowest value, what's the smallest integer that x could be, the answer would be 6. X would be 6. But the solution is x is greater than 5. So x can't be 5. The smallest number can't be 5. The smallest number that x could be is 6. So question D now. So to solve that, we have to get x on its own. In order to do that, we have to get rid of this plus 5 first. So how do you get a plus 5? You have to take away 5 from both sides. So I'll take away 5 here, and I'll have to take away 5 there as well. So on the left hand side, the plus 5 and the minus 5 cancels out, leaving with just 2x. And on the right hand side, I'll have to do 3, take away 5, which is minus 2 or negative 2. And then just copy this sign. I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative number, so still copy the sign. Don't flip the sign. Finally, I'll have to divide both sides by 2 to get rid of this times 2. So I have to divide 2 on the left hand side, and I have to divide 2 on the right hand side. So on the left hand side, the times 2 and the divide 2 cancels out, leaving just x. And on the right hand side, I'm going to do minus 2 divided by 2, which is just negative 1, minus 1. And then just copy the sign down. So x has to be less than minus 1. So on the number line, write number 1, minus 1. Draw your circle, and it has to be less. X has to be less than minus 1, so the arrow has to go this way. And because it's less than, it's not equal to, I just leave the circle unshaded, leave it open. So if they ask, so this is the answer. And if they asked you to give the largest possible integer or the largest possible whole number that x could be, the answer would be minus 2. Because x is anything less than minus 1. So the largest possible number that x could be, the largest possible whole number that x could be, is minus 2. So question E, to get x on its own, to solve x or to make x a subject, we have to get rid of the minus 5 first. So how to do that? We have to add 5 on the left, add 5 on the right. So on the left hand side, the minus 5 and the plus 5 cancels out, leaving with just 2x. And on the right hand side, I have to do 3 add 5, which is 8. And then just copy the sign down. And now to get x on its own, I have to get rid of this times 2. So I have to divide by 2 here and divide by 2 here. So on the left hand side, the times 2 and the divide 2 cancels out, and just x. On the right hand side, I have to do 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And let's copy the sign. So x has to be less than 4. So this is the answer. And if they asked us what is the largest possible value that x could be, what's the largest integer that x could be, the answer would be 3, because x cannot be 4.